Okay, 8-4. I got a bit late yet again. Should have been ready. Sorry about that. But now I'm live. So if you can hear me, say something. Okay. Yeah, perfect. I'm live. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. It's 8-5. Come on in. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, 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 boom. Yes, I can hear you fine, says Mr. Raju Kumar. Thank you, Mr. Kumar. Thank you. We will just begin in a second. We need a similar assurance from LinkedIn. We need a similar assurance from LinkedIn. So people on LinkedIn, if you can hear me, say something. And then we'll have the show that you deserve. You deserve it. The show that you deserve. The show that you deserve. Let's go ahead. A heavy news day today. A lot of things happening in the world. Solid things happening in the world. Okay, yeah, all right. So I'm audible on LinkedIn as well. Great. Let's go ahead then. Folks on LinkedIn, if there's any problem with my audio, do let me know. And so we'll begin. Bum 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 bum. Mr. Patil, thank you. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Hello everybody. Welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We're having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We are working so hard, doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our siblings, our husbands, our wives, our friends, everybody. Well, not other people's husbands and wives, I hope. And just when we thought things couldn't get any better, like they couldn't possibly get any better, well, they just did. Now we have Thinker's Frequency, our daily dose of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. So let's continue with our journey of reading between the lines things that are especially interesting and important in the world of business and finance. Our daily mental workout, as I'm starting to call it. Let's go! And before we go, you know the tradition, right? We've got to follow a tradition. The tradition of the simultaneous sip. The beautiful tradition of the simultaneous sip. And all you need for the simultaneous sip is a cup or mug or glass or tank, a chalice or stein, a canteen jug or flask, or a vessel of any kind. Pour it with your favorite liquid. Today I'm having coffee, cold. Let's go! Oh my god, extraordinary. Extraordinary. Let's do it again. Beautiful. Sublime. You know what the simultaneous sip says, right? You know what the simultaneous sip says, don't you? It says that you're not alone. It says that we are in this together. And that's such a beautiful thing to say. So let's begin. Reliance and Havels are entering the private equity party to snap up Whirlpool. Ninja Sati, yo bhai, hello. So, Mr. Sati. Oh, are you the musician, Sati? Oh, nice, nice. Reliance and Havens are entering the private equity party to snap up Whirlpool. So, Whirlpool is as an Indian subsidiary of the US giant that is Whirlpool. The business has been huge. However, it's like an 8,000 crore business with a 360 crore, PAT. 360 crore is essentially how much is, if a company is making 8,000 crores and almost 5% net margins. Whirlpool has 5% net margins. They're even growing 16%. But they have a lot of debt which they need to refinance, and also the margins aren't as great because they have to pay the royalties to the parent company in US. And parent company had divested some stake, like 24% some time ago, and they are looking at divesting more stake now. You know, they want to keep 20%. And interestingly, Reliance and Havells are wanting to acquire the company. Now, how many of you know about Havells as a brand? So, Havells is one of the greatest Indian success stories as far as entrepreneurial rigor is considered. Havells is such a beautiful story. There's a book called The Untold Story of Keemat Rai Gupta. So, Keemat Rai Gupta is the founder was the founder of Havells. Uh, Rest in peace. Great entrepreneur. And that particular book had been written by Anil Rai Gupta, who is the son of Keemat Rai Gupta. So he's the second generation of Havells Empire. And Havells has done some extraordinary work, right? And they are growing in the AC business. Lloyd brand essentially is from Havells. A lot of people think that Havells is not an Indian brand because they are positioned so well and they do so well, so they don't seem like an Indian brand, but they are very much Indian. In fact, Havells, the name Havells came from a factory which used to be run by a person called Haveli Ram. Okay, so Haveli Ram was a very thriving entrepreneur. However, he fell through hard times, real hard times, when his wife she passed away, and he fell into depression, and he couldn't run the factory anymore. That's when Haveli Ram sold his factory to Mr. Keemat Rai Gupta, sir, and Havells is the name which had. So it had an English ring to it, and since then, Havells has created a very interesting space in the premium play of the business world. So if you look at Indian businesses, the traditional Indian businesses, you go to Reliance. Reliance is essentially an oil empire, right? So no scope of actual innovation or premiumization or anything. Tata has always been like that. Birla, cement. Dalmia, cement. Dalmia's used to run Times of India, which was media. Then you look at Singhania's, again, tires and cements and so on and so forth. JK's. So all Indian businesses, Modi's, these guys, cigarettes, and so they've never been premium players. They've never created a business, a demand side business. So there are two kinds of businesses when you're talking about them. One is the demand side business, one is the supply side business. Let's say salt is a supply side business, right? Because you don't actually have to convince people to buy a commodity, but you have to convince people to buy a very expensive fan, which is more expensive than the market value. The rest of the competition. And that is very hard. That takes a lot. That takes brass balls, right? How do you make somebody pay extra for your brand? Not many Indian companies can claim to have done it successfully and at scale and for a prolonged period of time. But Havells is one of them. Great story, extraordinary story. Keemat Rai Gupta, The Untold Story of Keemat Rai Gupta was also a fascinating book. A fascinating book. It deserves to have some cinematic treatment, although it doesn't have a shade of grey, because these people just were working hard, are still working hard, very hard. So there's not much shade of grey except for the usual corporate shenanigan, but it was a great story. However, if you're picking up the book, I'd like to give you a disclaimer that in the beginning, it doesn't read as well. So it's not that tight read in the beginning. So in the beginning, it will make you sleep. For the first 50 pages, it will not read well as a very thrilling piece of literature. But then after you get used to that tone, and after you get past that hurdle, oh my god, that book gives you some level of insight in the world of uh, business creation. It was just incredible. That company is very old. It started before 1991, probably in the 70s, or in fact, even, yeah, 70s. And 70s, 80s, 90s is when the liberalization happened, 1991, and then moving on. So it's massively important book for everybody. Very underrated. I don't know why, but must read. Must read. So, finally, Team Trump. I mean, Mr. Donald Trump has dropped the claim of brokering India-Pak peace. So, all props to Modi ji, I guess. Uh, wasn't received well, that thing. Anyway, India is the safest and best and only place to invest in the world, says Mr. Amit Shah. Now that's the kind of salesmanship we need from from the leadership, at least the political leadership, because a lot of people think, uh, what do these people do essentially? You know, they are always on foreign trips and so on and so forth. They are, even though Mr. Amit Shah is the Home Minister, but what is the leadership supposed to do as far as this country is considered? These are salespeople like us. So we are trying to sell something, we work hard on something, but if nobody buys it, we don't have enough value. And the Indian story needs to be sold in a very, very big way. And the way that these people have been trying to sell the story is by saying that India is essentially the only place to invest in the world. Why? Because it's a major economy, fourth largest economy, going to be third largest in a couple of years. When it becomes the third largest economy, and it's also the most populous country in the world, great market, growing per capita income, great market. Yes, there are some institutional fundamental problems in India, cultural problems in India, however, that thing needs to change, right? The story needs to change. So that's what Mr. Amit Shah is saying. Mr. Amit Shah is saying that, earlier manufacturing or company setups used to be limited to some pockets of Gujarat, Maharashtra, right? Because they have been, let's say, proactive in bringing the industry to home. However, that's not the best way to go. And now we are seeing a lot of factories getting set up in UP, in Northeast, and so on and so forth. He says, which is great, right? Which is great because it has to be distributed. The concentration of industry has to be distributed in order for the country to make sense financially. So there's some feud going on between the Sun TV group. Brothers have alleged, one of the brothers said that, I'm sorry, Mr. Dayanand has said that his brother has taken fraudulent control by increasing his stakes in the company. It's an ongoing matter, but these kinds of things always happen. If you follow the Indian business ecosystem, especially the family-led ecosystem, because most Indian businesses are family-led organizations, right? That's what the Inheritors, the book also says, that India is essentially a family tree as far as business ecosystem is considered. A lot of family players. So a lot of these family institutions also have very, very weird disputes, right? So it's another one in the list, I guess. India is keeping tabs on INSTC Chabar port. So India has just got last year the mandate to run the Chabar port. Two trusts have been running it. They've invested some $85 million. And so at the moment, Israel isn't attacking the Iranian ports, right? We talked about Strait of Hormuz, the narrow passage of water, which leads to a lot of trade. We discussed its importance, right? 50% of natural gas, 30% of crude comes from that particular strait. So as of now, Israel hasn't really attacked the ports, because that's commerce hits, right? If they attack ports, or if Strait of Hormuz gets attacked, or let's say blocked by Iran, then the global world order suffers. Then China suffers. Nobody wants to upset China, right? Nobody wants to upset China. Speaking of China, China and Russian bloc have said something very, very interesting. They've said, we want to categorically warn America for getting involved in the Israel and Iran conflict. Now, what does that mean? What does Russia warning US mean? As far as that's weird. Are we seeing signs of escalations? Uh, Contrastingly, I mean, when you look at this conflict, Iran literally has no chips left. No chips left, right? So it's strange what's happening as far as this conflict is considered, because it should be coming to an end, is what I believe. Uh, Rather quickly. I mean, but apparently there are still some unresolved issues. So, people who follow American politics, if you do, which I do closely, Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz had an interview. So, for people who don't know, Tucker Carlson is like the most prominent right wing political commentator slash journalist in the United States. Okay, so he used to work in Fox. He was the prime time guy, the most well paid, and then he was fired from Fox, and he's now an independent guy, and he's the biggest in the right wing political ecosystem as a political commentator. Or so he interviewed Ted Cruz about Israel and Iran conflict. So, as I'll just give you a crash course on American right wing politics. So, American right wing politics is divided into two factions, right? One believes in non-interventionist approach, no wars. That US doesn't want to get involved in any war whatsoever. Now, these are the right wing people who believe that US has made a lot of missteps, a lot of blunders, a lot of uh, let's say absolutely catastrophic moves as far as Iraq is considered, Libya is considered, and so on and so forth, right? So they are anti-war. They don't want anything to do with any war outside uh, US, right? So they want US to focus on the country inside. Now, another section of the right wing, which is called the neocons, the neoconservators, are the warmongers. They are the George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, Lindsey Graham kind of people. They believe in uh, strength, or assertion of strength. And in the middle is some sort of Reagan, political space where they say peace through strength. So we don't attack, but we make sure that people know. So now these two factions are fighting. One faction says that Israel's war is Israel's problem, US shouldn't get involved, right? And the other faction says that this war is very much a US problem, because if Iran gets nuclear weapons, everything ends, right? So these two factions are having a debate right now, and Tucker Carlson had a very big gotcha moment with Ted Cruz, who is the Texas senator, saying, "Tell me the population of Iran," okay? And Ted Cruz couldn't say it, and that was a gotcha moment. But the point is that US is still weighing options as far as getting involved in this war is considered, with its B-2 bombers, which can uh, demolish the underground nuclear facilities. And there's other section which says, please don't do it. Don't do it. We've done enough bad wars. So Tulsi Gabbard is the non-war front. But it's a very, very complicated situation. I think it should be resolved sometime soon. Speaking of really interesting maneuvers as far as Indian defense is considered, Indian Defense Ministry has ordered a review of the asset buy procedure. So there's something called Defense Asset, DAP, it's called, Defense Acquisition Procedure. So it's a very long drawn procedure. It leads to 2 to 3 years of gestation period for a demand to get placed, and then the acquisition to get complete. It's a bit of a problem, as far as timelines are considered. It takes a lot of time. So what the defense ministry now wants to do is reduce this to 6 months. They want to bring it down to 6 months. So from ordering to delivering to everything from procurement without having any scope of corruption and so on. So for they're bringing a lot of efficiencies as far as these procurements are considered. Very good move. Uh, Very important. Very important. Because you'll be surprised to know how long it takes for things to get delivered. Things to get delivered. And earlier it used to take a lot of time for things to get made. So Urgent Tank was sanctioned into the 1980s. It got delivered in like late 2010s, or yeah, late 2010s. Tejas, the aircraft, it was also sanctioned in late 1970s, and it got sanctioned. Inducted in 2017, I guess. So Urgent Tank, by the time it came, it was already outdated. So that was the case, but now it's not. Now we're getting better, and I hope we do. I hope we do. Very interesting times ahead for the defense industry. Government forms panel to reduce coaching dependency. Well, that's another one of these meaningless things I keep reading about the coaching industry being the evil, and coaching industry needs to be curtailed, and false advertising and all of this. I don't know what you think of it. uh, you can let me know what you think of it in comments, but I personally believe that coaching industry is one of India's very important place, because if you look at it, uh, we are a country of an extraordinary population density, right? I'll just give you some numbers to blow your mind. United States population density is some 40 people per square kilometer. Okay, 40 people, 34 people actually, but let's say 34, 40. China's population density is 175 people per square kilometer, almost 190, let's say 180, 190, right? Guess India's population density. Just guess. Just make a wild guess. Yeah? I'm listening. I'm listening. Oh, you said it right. I heard you. It's 490 people. So we are essentially 12 times more populated, densely populated than US, and 3 times more populated, densely populated than China. The competition which Indians have to deal with is extraordinary. Is extraordinary, you know? And the only uh, legitimate way of social mobility in this country is the engineering college which a child goes to, right? If a person goes to IIT, his life essentially gets just the social mobility index changes for him, right? Life gets transformed forever, forever. And how do you do that? How do you do that? Let's say you ban all coaching institutes, you make them the villains, you ask them to stop operations. Sure, then what? What's going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? You know, in fact, on the contrary, we should be thanking these coaching institutes for actually delivering a rigorous academic environment, a heavy academic environment. Because even if you do not go to IITs, like I prepared for JE, and I couldn't crack the JE, right? I didn't go to an IIT, but uh, you know the rigor, the quantum of rigor which I had to go through actually led to a very good impact for me. It changed my life in a good way, I'll say. Yes, it's a fact that not having cracked that exam uh, is surely one of the biggest defeats that a person can go through. But that's the problem of the competitive nature of these exams and the scarcity of the seats, right? That's not the problem of coaching institutes. They are only teaching, you know, and no amount of teaching at a school which is so uh, it's the grind that builds you, says Mr. Racy Bhavik. Yeah, exactly, right? So this entire spiel against coaching institutes is just a bunch of bullshit. That's what I think. Anyway, moving forward. Bum 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 bum. All right, all two-wheelers to come with ABS from next year. So ABS is anti-lock braking system, uh, and that's supposed to be coming in bikes now. It already comes in cars, but that's not enough for road safety, says the government. So they say that we are going to bring ABS to cars. Oh, sorry, to bikes, and not just the upper 150cc plus bikes. We're going to bring ABS to all bikes, the entry level bikes. ABS is anti-lock braking. So what it does is when you press the brakes too hard, instead of blocking it at once, it starts, this kind of a cycle, where it has a rotation per minute kind of a thing, where it I don't know if you can see through the video. I'm not being able to articulate, but what it does is it's like a stop start stop start stop start kind of a kind of a mechanism in braking. So that essentially leads to less skidding, right? Instead of, if you just press the brake once and then go down, it skids. So anti-lock braking system to come to bikes. Bike companies are crying. So what they say is, if we bring the ABS system to bikes, and especially the entry level bikes, it's gonna cost them 2,500 more, right? And there's only so much demand elasticity, right? So if you increase the price, especially in the entry bike segment, it's not gonna lead to higher sales. The market is going to suffer. So you can expect the Hero stock to go down a little, considering this even further, or even Bajaj, by the way, or even TVS, but Hero primarily, right? So that goes. Personally, I have never found ABS nice. Maybe, I mean, it's just like a very, it's not that comfortable to me personally. Drivers and petrol heads could share their thoughts. So Air India is fares are fall across key routes. The chief says the crashed plane was well maintained, but it's just a strike of bad luck. And this continues to be a very sad news for the airlines industry. Now, viewers of Thinkers Frequency know that I've talked a lot about airlines industry and how it works, right? And how it's a very bad business. And that's not my original thought. I actually learned it from Peter Thiel, Mr. Peter Thiel, the legend. And he had a very good case against commodity businesses, especially airlines. And that's proving to be true yet again. Air India, which is already was already in doldrums. After much fanfare, Tata had acquired it, gotten it back as a private airline, and then it's gotten screwed and struck by a bolt of lightning. Let's see let's see what happens. Speaking of industries what are your thoughts about black box going to USA Boeing? Yeah, Mr. Patel, that's a good question. So I distrust Boeing a lot. Will get a clean sheet? I think yes. So Boeing, the reason why I distrust Boeing is because Boeing had a whistleblower incident, and where the whistleblower said that Boeing intentionally cut safety, traded it off for production. So they were essentially knowingly, voluntarily sacrificing on safety just because they could produce more or sell more, right? And then that whistleblower accusation, while that case was going on, he was found dead. So after I hear this, I don't need to hear anything else, and I automatically, the simple heuristic is just distrust the guys, right? So that's my stance on Boeing. Then they had to pay a lot of money to DOJ, and they paid a fine, and then everything was hushed. But you can't trust a company like that. So you're right, Mr. Patel. They will get a clean sheet, is what I feel. And maybe they're right. So I'm not saying that the plane necessarily had problems because of Boeing. Maybe this was in fact a freak occurrence, right? But I just can't trust Boeing anymore. That's the play. So moving forward, I was talking about a company which industry which is facing a lot of problems. That industry is the movie industry, the film industry, especially the Hindi film industry, and not just Hindi film industry. Actually, every film industry. Any book recommendations of Thiel other than 0 to 1, absolutely loved 0 to 1. So Mr. Kulkarni, Mr. Nishant Kulkarni, Mr. Peter Thiel has written two books. One is Diversity Myth and one is 0 to 1. And Diversity Myth is way ahead of its times. Actually, it was written in the 90s, and the way it has foretold the American political conversation is interesting. But it's essentially a right American right political book. It's a very short. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, you could read it. However, what you can read and what I have done is that I started following the books which Mr. Peter Thiel recommended, right? So if you can look at, I'm sure you can't, but so Mr. Peter Thiel has recommended like some 30 books, right? And I've read a lot of them, but now I'm reading the books which actually shaped his life, he says. So one of those books is Things Hidden Since the Foundation of the World. One is 20 battles that shaped human history, and so on. So when as far as Mr. Thiel is considered, he said, after we read Gerard, who wrote Things Hidden Since the Foundation of the World, he said, we realized we knew something about the world that others didn't. And that was a badass statement for me, right? So I also read that book, and now I think I know something about the world that others don't. So, but I don't know how much it helps. Anyway, so moving on, the Indian movie industry is going through a very, very tough time, and the Hindi film industry especially is not being able to draw audience, and that's a known fact. That's not a secret anymore. However known that fact was, I mean, we saw it coming. People saw it coming. We were seeing this happen, right? But if you remember that Kriti Senon, if I'm pronouncing her name right, Kriti Senon, and Badshah, the rapper, with Nikhil Kamath. When Nikhil Kamath said that the industry is going through a tough time, these people were saying, "What tough time? Why do you say tough time? My movies did well." Basically, these people who are at the forefront of the industry, they didn't know that the industry is actually in doldrums. But now it's apparent to everybody. And this particular report says, one trade analyst says, that the elite people, so to speak, or let's say, if not elite, slightly more affluent people have stopped going to the theaters because of OTT. And at the same time, there are no mass entertainers which can cater to the less elite people, so to speak, right? And that is leading to the downfall of industry. So industry is trying to upgrade itself to elitism, as this guy says, and elites are not going to theaters. People who want to go to theaters, they are not getting the stuff they want. Now, I don't think Bollywood is trying to go elite in any way. Bollywood is just a dumpster fire truck who's not trying to go elite, who's actually trying to go even more South Indian, as far as films are considered. They are trying to go massy. But it's just that, the industry has more problems. And then they say, the another analysis which these people have shared is that there's an overwhelming reliance on big budget films, which is causing serious harm to the industry. Now that is very, very well said, because big budget films, they are a binary outcome play, right? Let's say Mission Impossible. Now it was a decent film, but it cost $550 million to make and market, right? 400 million production budget, 150 million print and advertising, 550 million. Now that movie will make 500 million in all, right? Satellite rights, every right, 500 million it will be able to make. But 500 million box office means 250 million gross for the producers. That means they lost like $300 million on that movie, right? Now, I have a very interesting anecdote which was shared by Woody Allen, sir. He is one of my heroes. And he wrote a very good book called Apropos of Nothing. Great book. In that book, he said, movies were not supposed to be such financial projects. Earlier, or when he was going ahead, it used to be like you invest in small movies. You make a lot of small movies, okay? And when you make like a million, 1 million movies or 10 million movies, you can make 10 movies costing 10 million each, okay? Now, some movies go ahead, some movies don't. But at the end of the day, your risk is so distributed that you've made 10 movies costing 10 million each, and you essentially get a 10 to 15, 20% return over the course of 3 to 4 years, right? And that's enough, right? 20% return is not bad at all. But then somebody got an idea, some executive, some MBA got an idea that why don't we make $100 million movie, okay? And let's make $100 million movie, and if it ends up making $300 million in the box office, we'll be able to make $150 million net, right? So they said, let's concentrate the risk, let's make less movies, but let's make big movies because the reward would be amazing. And that, Mr. Woody Allen said, screwed everything up, because when you're trying to make that movie, if you invested like $100 million in a movie, or let's say in today's scale, $1 billion on a movie, you want that movie to be perfectly right? You want that movie to be market tested, color corrected, and so on and so forth. So that is boring, right? Then that movie has no insight, then that movie has no shock value, then that movie has no, let's say, niche holding on to it, no extreme reactions, and so on and so forth. Because that is art. So once that art goes out of the window, it becomes a market research project, and it screws everything up. Mr. Amrit Raj says, "Hi Nishant, could you please leave the book recommendations in the end?" Okay, so the books I talked about throughout the session in the end, is that what you mean? I could do that, sure. Moving on, good discussion, I guess. I hope you liked it. China's great electric leap forward. Well, who doesn't know that? Who doesn't know that? By the way, speaking of China's great electric leap forward, something very interesting has happened. Indian government has given, it's set up a 5,000 crore incentive scheme for these rare earth extraction programs. I'm sorry, I missed a question from Mr. Kulkarni. Is the situation the same for South Indian films? Yeah, they're not making... so people have a belief that, oh, South Indian movies are making money. No, but that's not the case. Kerala movies, Malayali movies are making a lot of money, but that's not the case at all. So I can discuss it in depth, but I've already discussed a lot about movies and only have 15 minutes left. So let's move on. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about the South Indian films some other day. So 5,000 crore incentive scheme is up for the rare earth minerals play. The government wants to set it up as a critical mineral program. So there are some critical minerals which are placed on war footing, right? So these rare earth magnets, rare earths are said to get that kind of a treatment. Now that is very interesting. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency would know that I had said that despite everything that China has done and China has caused, at will, it'll be very optimistic, or let's say almost impractical to think that anybody's gonna do anything about it, right? We discussed about that, right? Because people are driven by short-term thinking. However, the caveat in that is, and that's completely right, if you would have left it to the private industry, they wouldn't have bothered to actually fight for these minerals or place their own bets in going forward. However, most businesses are outcomes of political decisions. That's another one of the greatest insights that I've learned recently, that most businesses are outcomes of political decisions. So until now, there used to be no rare earth extraction, right? Just because this government goes ahead and says, no, we can't be dependent on China like that. So we are going to look at something, when we got to do something, we got to put our money where our mouth is. So they come up with this incentive scheme, right? 3.5 to 5,000 crore domestic critical mineral production priority, because it goes in EVs, renewable energy infrastructure, and there's going to be an auction and so on. So now companies are going to start bidding for it. Now companies are going to start making it. And when that happens, it's going to lead to such good cascading effects. It's going to lead to such brilliant outcomes for the country, and the business community, only because the political will suggested that. So all businesses, or most businesses, are the result of political decisions, political will. So moving on, benchmarking of iron ore prices to global gauges proposed. So this is a very niche thing, not many people would understand, so I'll try to be as simplistic as I can be. And that thing is that so iron ore producers, what they used to be doing it used to be a self declaration that this much iron ore has been sold, or this is the price, and so on and so forth. So there used to be a self declaration way. Okay, because of that self declaration, they didn't used to report how much, at what price did they sell, or exactly, because they're self declaring, so they could under report the revenues. Okay, if they under report these iron ore revenues, these players, the government's tax income reduces, right? So now government is saying, let's scrap this self declaration play, and what we want you guys to be doing is following the S&P, some foreign index kind of a play. I'll just tell you which one is it. So it's essentially S&P Global Platts or other reputed publications for iron ore of the same grade. So moving away from the self-declaration regime, the Mines Ministry said the IBM, which is the Indian Bureau of Mines, shall compute the daily price of iron ore fines in Indian rupees based on these play. So again, now it's going to lead to more transparency, more tax income for the government, which is nice. AIC seeking GST exemption on all rural general insurance plans. So they say that insurance penetration is at 4% in India, which is no number. They want it to increase, and the way they suggest increasing it is by cutting GST for the rural plans. So they say that let's do not take that 18% or whatever you take, so that we can go forward. Plans afoot to track green hydrogen use. So people who don't know, steel is the production of steel is like responsible for 10% of global emissions, right? And a lot of green hydrogen is being proposed to be used by steel production, right? So that that emission can come down. However, the problem is that you don't know where the green hydrogen goes, right? You incentivize the production, you incentivize its use, but you don't know. So now the tracking of that green hydrogen use is going to be tighter. So a lot of the conversations which have happened recently, viewers of Thinkers Frequency would know, are very much centered on better tracking, better data collection, right? Just like this iron ore thing, now this green hydrogen thing, because what's the point of incentivizing an industry? You have a green hydrogen mission which has a 20,000 crore outlay. What's the point if it doesn't get used in the way it's supposed to get used, right? The government is preparing a plan to track utilization of green hydrogen and build global partnerships for exporting the fuel. So that's good, I guess. No, not I guess. I'm sure it's good. Recovery rate under Indian Bankruptcy Code improved to 34%. That's nice. Anyway, Foxconn is looking to set up a new Tamil Nadu unit to make iPhone enclosures. So right now, Foxconn has an assembly unit getting set up, has it, and now the enclosures are also going to be made in a facility very much nearer to the assembly plant. So this focuses, as I had talked about. So viewers of Thinkers Frequency would know in the earlier episodes, one of this conversation came up, and I said that Apple is not going to, or Apple or its ancillaries are not going to uh, put up, stop their plans or slow down their plans in India as of now, because creating similar plans in US will take time. So even if Team Trump says you've got to do it in US, you've got to do it in US, and the company says yes, we want to do it in US, it'll just take a lot of time, and Apple cannot just stop or alter its plans in India, because the essential idea was to hedge the risk, to diversify away from China plus one, and so on. So while Apple would make similar investments in US, you should see that, you should expect that. I had mentioned it in one of the earlier episodes. You will see that these plans will not slow down in India, at least in the near term, right? And that's cool. Quickcom run, and all thanks to the smartphone manufacturing, uh, what I know the Hindi word, muhim, or let's say initiative by the government, right? So once again, most business outcomes are the result of political will. Anyway, quick commerce running out of delivery riders, a demand shoots up. Quick commerce, I mentioned Zepto, Eternal, Instamart, Big Basket, now Amazon and Flipkart. So you've got 6 players who are trying to latch on to the delivery boys. A delivery boy says we used to get 40 rupees per delivery, but now we're getting like 25 rupees and in some cases 15 rupees, which is screwed up. So what people don't realize is a lot of idiots say that, oh, quick commerce is also giving jobs to delivery boys, and those are middle class jobs, and they are the new middle class of India, and they should be looked up as a income generating machine. But what people don't realize is that these are terrible jobs, and these jobs are a race to bottom. So when you take a job, what you want to be looking at is growth. Because without growth, a person who starts becoming a delivery boy at age 18, let's say, even at age 38, he won't be making more. He'll only be making less, if he stays in that delivery boy job. Yes, he can go and try to be an operations manager at a dark store, but how many operations manager do you think would they need? So all the delivery boy jobs that this ecosystem is creating, they are essentially traps for the unemployed youth of the country. And that they are traps which people would never come out of, because they wouldn't know anything, right? So that's what's happening right now. Fresh exits as at Krutrim as company ramps up work on AI models and semiconductor chips. So people who, would you consider delivery boy job same as call center job? Not at all. Not at all, actually. So call center that's a very good question, Mr. Patil. But if you remember the call center revolution, there was a clear what is it called? Career path. Yeah. There was a clear career path that, so call centers, all callers are on the same floor as the manager and the super manager and the super manager and the head and the delivery head and the client relations guy. They're all on the same floor. That's not the case with delivery guys, right? So they are not the same. A call center employee, a good caller, will become a team leader. A team leader will become a senior team leader, will become a manager, will become an AGM, general manager, and so on and so forth. And he can head the call center operations. And then he's going to be learning a very important skill of being able to talk, of being able to manage some sort of technological system, on being able to operate computers, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of skilling happening as far as calling is considered, right? Cold calling is a very, very good exercise. However, nothing of that sort exists here. Nothing exists here. So they're very different. And call centers was much better. But they're gonna die. So AI, tech, automation, geopolitics focus at TCS AGM. As I said, TCS and the likes, Indian IT, is going through a tough time, and that's not gonna go away, as I've mentioned before. Now, what we've been talking about, as far as thinkers' frequency is considered, viewers would know, is that I've said that Indian IT, at least the large caps, they are going to go through very tough times. I am bearish on the long term. I don't think this $280 billion industry has a lot of legs, right? Now, two ratings people, CLSA and Morgan Stanley, have come out with their own reports. CLSA says that they are bullish, and Morgan Stanley says that they're not bullish. They're only one company, TCS. They think they has a chance. Otherwise, they're bearish, and I agree. And data points to it, right? The share of big companies in the entire pie is going down, as we discussed. If you remember, the mid-tier firms were gaining ground, and overall the industry is not growing, and it's showing serious signs of decline. And with the advent of AI, we don't even know what will happen, so it might just be crazy, the amount of disruption that these people face. So that's it. Let's move on. Applied Materials says Bangalore chip making center to raise $2 billion. US chip maker also setting up 2 units in Karnataka. Amazon is investing 2,000 crores to boost operations infrastructure. Sure, that's not a big deal, right? That's not a big deal. By the way, I don't understand how Amazon is going to look at surviving in the Indian space. It's not been able to make a mark. A lot of people thought Amazon India is going to kill it, and but that didn't happen. And now Amazon unit doesn't make any money in India. Both Amazon and Flipkart are losing $1 billion each, but at least Flipkart has a growing market share. Amazon doesn't even have that. And now comes the quick commerce guys who are taking away a lot of business from Amazon. So maybe you're going to look at a lot of moves by Amazon if it wants to persist in India. Which side of IT are you on? I just told you, right? Morgan Stanley says no. CLSA says positive. I'm on the side of Morgan Stanley in this one. In fact, I'm stronger as far as my emphasis is concerned. It's going to be a very tough time for these guys, is what I think, in the long term. Not saying in the short term. Not saying that the stock is going to crash tomorrow. But in the long term, it's going to be a bit of a problem, is what I think, considering the information I have right now, which might change. So moving forward, boom, 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 boom. Earnings growth may halve for banks in a cautious economy. Well, viewers of Thinkers Frequency wouldn't have needed to read this article, because we've discussed it in depth, right? Why banks' earnings would be facing a setback. You remember, right? You remember that? I hope you do. Well, I heard you. Telepathy. Yes, I know you do. So infra account provisioning gets a lighter touch. So what that means is that the central banks has some norms as far as the loans provided to infrastructure projects is considered. With every loan comes some sort of provisioning norms, according to which the banks have to abide by and classify those loans as whatever, right? So that provisioning has come down from 1.1% to 1.25% to 0.4%, which means it's going to be easier for banks to handle these accounts, right? Because with higher provisioning, the RBI gets involved, that it shouldn't become an NPA or something like that. So that's going to be easier for the banks from here on. Jio breaks ranks with peers over 6G waves for Wi-Fi. And telecom industry AGR shows modest growth in Q4 FY25. 1.7% growth, modest growth. So if you remember, I told you when I met Mr. Sunil Mittal, he said that it's better to put in money in the FDs because telecom is a very slow moving The return on telecom is 1.5%, which is less than an FD. So that times are behind us. Telecom is doing better than before, but it's still modest growth, 1.7% rise, and Jio has grown, extended its lead a little. Airtel has slightly fallen down. Vodafone Idea is a dumpster fire as always. No surprise there. So, big four other global firms decry ICAI's overseas network norms. So, this has an interesting context. Indian government wanted to make India's own big four, right? So, there's right now in the audit business, there's EY, there's KPMG, there's PwC, and Deloitte, right? These are the global big fours, and they're making a lot of money, by the way. A lot of money. EY itself is like making $2 billion in a year, which is crazy, right? So, the big four collectively earned 45,000 crores, and EY did $2 billion. That's 16,000 crores. My God, these service companies are killing it. And that's hard cash, man. Amazing. So the problem is that India wants its own big four, it wants Indian companies to go forward, and it has a chance. So GT Bharat, Grant Thornton Bharat, which is with Sheikh Chandiok Sir's company, and BDO and other people. So for that, what these people did was ICAI, that it made a norm for these global firms to disclose or file disclosures of their global entities. So this has led to a lot of hue and cry saying that you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't ask an Indian subsidiary to give disclosures about its, global peer, let's say. So that's going through. I'm sure that this will be reversed. I think. So, tragedy is spurring more Indians to drop will. Okay, that's not a big thing. Moving forward. UK sees 23% surge in number of Indian-owned businesses. Revenue hit 72 billion. So Indian diaspora is doing very well in UK. It's doing 72 billion worth of revenue done by Indian-owned businesses. But UK is kind of a dump now, right? I loved when J.D. Vance, the Vice President of United States, Mr. J.D. Vance said, which is the first Islamic country to, which will be the first major Islamic power to have nuclear weapons? And people said, what? So he said, maybe you would say Pakistan, maybe, But the first Islamic major country to have nuclear weapons is actually UK. Because of the constitution. And it's pretty much in dire straits now, the economy. But anyway, moving forward. US resumes visa for foreign students. Demands access to social media accounts. So US is saying that we need to audit your social media before we let you in, right? Which is great actually, because all these intifada people and all the activists, let's say, I don't know if I should call them extremists or whatever, what's your business there, man? They're going to study, or what? So this is happening. It's a pretty good move. Bank of England holds key rate as inflation stays high. So I discussed it. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency would know that US Fed didn't raise interests, right? Mr. Trump wanted Mr. Powell to raise the interest rate, but that didn't happen because of job data, and he called him stupid. He called Mr. Powell stupid. But Powell said that it's a non-political understanding, and even though inflation is less, we cannot reduce rates because there's a lot of play that you're not privy to. Apparently, Bank of England has also held rates. It's also not decreasing the interest rates because inflation is too high. And that's what I was saying, right? Just big. But Russia has reduced rates. India has reduced rates. Euro is looking at reduction of rates. Now US and UK are the two people in the play. Google suffers setback in a fight over EU's 4.1 billion euro fine. So Europe has fined Google for abusing its dominant position in the Play Store business, and that's going on. SpaceX Starship rocket has exploded on tech stand. So Mr. Musk has been going through real tough times as he inserted himself into the political discourse. He risked everything, put his life on the line, and that led to a lot of focus away from the companies. And this makes you think, right? Even somebody like Elon Musk, Mr. Musk, who has the world's most talented people, world's most well-paid people, world's most professional, motivated people, most, let's say, pedigreed people, as he steps away from the businesses, everything goes wrong. Just as he steps away from Twitter, there's some sort of crashes, outages. Just as he steps away from Starlink, there's some sort of, just as he steps away from Tesla, there's some problem. As soon as he comes back and he starts sleeping on the factory floors and stuff, everything works, right? So the Malik concept, कि Malik के बिना काम नहीं होता, that's apparently not an Indian thing, Even the professional management sees that happening. Trump has extended a TikTok ban deadline for the third time. So people who don't know, America wanted to ban TikTok, right as well as left, the Democrats as well as Republicans. There was a faction who wanted TikTok to be banned because, well, I'd like to correct myself, not Democrats, but a faction in the right said TikTok is essentially polluting the mind, and it's essentially a brain control operation of China. And the content that is popular in TikTok US is not the kind of popular content that is popular in TikTok China, which means China is essentially playing with what people watch. So if you watch a lot of dumb stuff, you will become a dumb person, right? And TikTok makes people watch a lot of dumb stuff in India. In India, it's banned, but US. However, when you go to TikTok in China, you suddenly start seeing all these TikToks of science and business and inspiring stuff. So people have been claiming that TikTok is number one an espionage tool. It's tracking American citizens. Then it's polluting the mind. Just like Britishers killed the Chinese youth with opium, supply of opium. They just drugged them like Indian youth is drugged right now. So one way is to drug the youth and just finish it, and the second thing is just drug them through content, right? So a lot of people in the US political spectrum have said that TikTok needs to be banned for its espionage or whatever. So, but Team Trump has said that TikTok doesn't need to be banned. TikTok could be instead sold to an American entity. So China could sell its US TikTok operations so that TikTok could survive, and then it could come in US hands so that the economic value isn't destroyed, right? So that's Team Trump's view on it. And they've been extending the ban on TikTok in hopes that this transaction could happen soon. Salesforce was in the play to buy TikTok and so on. So a lot of these maneuvers have happened. Not much has progressed on that. China probably doesn't want to sell TikTok, so you never know. But it's the third deadline extension has happened. Maybe I think what's going to happen is just going to keep the deadline extension until the deal is reached, and the deal might not reach because TikTok doesn't want to sell, and China wouldn't want to sell it, right? So with that, however, it could be it could be forced to sell. If the ban is actually implemented, then China will have no option but to sell. If it comes to that the government says no, you cannot run it, either it's getting banned or it's sold. So maybe in that case. But with that, the daily mental workout, which I've started calling it, how do you think about the daily mental workout pitch as the frame for Thinker's Frequency? A daily mental workout, yeah? That comes to an end. Insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis right before we start our day have come to an end for today. See you tomorrow. Have a beautiful day at work. Have a wonderful day, personally and professionally. I'll be here. Bye-bye. See you.